So the Carnitrix is actually one of the most popular fan watches of all time, but can it be beaten? Let's find out which characters from the Ben 10 TV show can actually beat the Carnitrix, and we'll be scrolling through at length to see which characters actually throw hands with this watch and which characters take L's. And stick around to the end because there's a character that has only appeared once in the entire show and can floor the Carnitrix in 2.60 seconds. By the way, she has no Omnitrix. Firstly, let's give a short definition of what is the actual Carnitrix. Created by Cannibal on Twitter, this watch is known to be a device that creates a mangled and misshapen version of the alien transformations, a very popular one being the Carnitrix version of Alien X. Now of course, it's actually been said that the Carnitrix versions of the aliens are actually a lot weaker, or just a bit weaker than the original versions. So let's start out with some of the youngest versions of Ben Tennyson. Those would be Ben 10 from Ben 10 Race Against Time, Ben 10 from the Gwen 10 universe, Ben 10 from the reboot, and Young Prime Ben. Now we're including Alien X in this combat versus each of these Bens. And first of all, we know that Ben 10 from Gwen 10 sure as hell is not going to be able to put up a fight in this combat, since he doesn't even have an Omnitrix. Even if he does end up becoming a proficient weapons master for the plumbers, he still isn't going to be able to fight bloodthirsty high-level combat aliens. So it kind of leaves all of the other Bens that can actually fight. Ben 10 Race Against Time is actually quite an interesting one because he is probably the only Ben that does have access to the Cronian transformation. And upon watching stuff like 5YL comic as of late, I've been seeing a lot more of how powerful Eon's powers actually are. Definitely Ben 10 Race Against Time does take definitive win here. The other Bens, with the fact that they might be outclassed by a ravaging bloodthirsty Alien X, is still a factor that we have to keep in mind. All other regular versions of Ben, unless they are pulling out a Celestial Sapien, they most likely will not be able to win. Ben Tennyson from Alien Force is definitely another version of Ben that we have to take into consideration if he could be able to beat the Carnitrix. Now, I definitely do believe that he could throw hands with him and easily take him down outside of the Carnitrix Alien X transformation. The only way where I do see where he actually is able to beat him without issue is if he would be able to take him on with some form of control or agreement from Serena and Bellicus. That's the only possible way, and then I would probably say he would definitely be able to take this win home in the bag. It's pretty much an easy W for Omniverse Ben Tennyson as well, with the fact that he has full freaking mastery of Alien X because he got the keys from Serena and Bellicus. So it's probably an easy wash. The versions of Ben 10,000 though that could be able to take him on, definitely classic Ben 10K isn't known as a Ben 10,000 with an Alien X transformation, nonetheless control, so he probably definitely fall prey to this one. So we have to take into consideration the reboot Ben 10,000, Ultimate Ben 10,000, and Ben 10,000 Omniverse. Let's get Ben 10,000 Omniverse probably out of this conversation just like immediately, because he is definitely winning with the fact that he has control over Alien X through diluting the Celestial Sapien species with fusion. He definitely will take the cake. So it's kind of up to Ultimate Ben, and Reboot Ben is definitely not winning. He hasn't been seen or proven to have access to transformations like Alien X or transformations anywhere near as powerful as Alien X, so I definitely don't see him being able to take on the Carnitrix version of Ben. Ben 10,000 Ultimate though, he should have control of an Alien X transformation, but we haven't actually seen or had any evidence or proof. We've only seen him use a few transformations. However, one of his most powerful and one that you can clearly see that he's very versed with is the transformation of Clockwork. Ultimate Ben going into the Clockwork mode should actually be snap of a fingers, easy peasy lemon squeezy for him to be able to take down a Carnitrix Ben, simply because time manipulation to like the highest level of proficiency should be a walk in the park. Now we move on to a few versions of Gwen to see if she would be able to take down the Carnitrix. So we have both kit versions of Gwen from the reboot and Gwen 10 from the Gweniverse. Of course, there are quite a few more versions of Gwen, but most of them possess either the same amount of powers, the same level of powers, or basically no powers at all. The only Gwen that I do see which would be able to reasonably take on the Carnitrix would probably be Gwen 10. Because all of the others are still, they're really good at hand-to-hand combat, but they're still just pretty much novices at magic use. Reboot Gwen just does not have any powers. I don't know what she does. I mean, she's adorable. I guess that counts as a power, right? Gwen 10 would she actually be able to beat the Carnitrix? Well, excluding Alien X, I do think she has a chance. She does have decent combat proficiency, and she does seem to have, you know, a prodigy level of adapting to things just the way as Ben does. So she probably would be able to outmaneuver him, probably get an upper hand on him without the Alien X transformation. Once Alien X comes into the conversation, it gets pretty scuffed. It's pretty difficult. But I definitely do believe that she could take the cake if the Carnitrix Ben doesn't get to transform into Alien X. The different versions of Gwen from Alien Force are definitely versions of Gwen that I would say are Gwens to definitely be scared of. She becomes so much more powerful, especially gaining more access towards her Anodite heritage and her Anodite form. As we've seen from Verdona, it's on some reality bending type shit. And she really would probably have a field day with this version of Alien X, as she's been seen to one-shot major villains that have, you know, haven't been fodder, and we're talking about high-level hybrid soldiers. I mean, I don't think Zombozo really counts as a high-level villain, but Zombozo is one of them who also gets one-shot by Anodite Gwen, so we definitely do think that she could take the cake. Omniverse Gwen is the next Gwen. She possesses similar powers to the version of Gwen in Alien Force, but with a little bit more mastery of switching in and out of her Anodite transformation. That kind of leads me to bring up Ben10K version of Gwen, and who is obviously much more powerful than the version of Gwen from Omniverse or Alien Force. With the fact that she's a fully actualized mage, we couldn't generally just call her Sorceress Supreme. She's a fully actualized mage, she has all of the charms of Basel, she has full manipulation over her mana abilities, and along with the fact that, as we've seen in Omniverse, she can go in and out of Anodite form like that with no issues. So I definitely do think that she should be able to have a field day. This should be a walk in the park for her taking on the Carnitrix. Now we move on to Kevin Levin. We have quite a few versions of Kevin. We could use Kid Kevin from the classic series and Kid Kevin from the reboot. Hands down, this version of Kevin actually solos the Carnitrix, both of them, easily. Antitrix Kevin has such a high level of variety in his playlist, and he still does have an amalgamation form, which, you know, for you guys who actually don't watch the reboot, yes, he does have access to an amalgamation transformation. It's only accessed by Charmcaster's spell. I don't think Carnitrix Ben is actually taking on this and actually would be able to win. Kevin from the classic series, rewatching that, he was actually probably one of the closest guys to rival Ben in hand-to-hand combat, being able to use terrain to his advantage, turning out the lights, trying to latch onto a version of Heat Blast to try and electrocute him. This guy stared down a prime species Pyronite, being wielded by a prodigy combatant with photographic memory, and he won. First time in Heat Blast's powers. If he is able to get anywhere as close using his terrain like this to the Carnitrix Ben, it should actually genuinely be GG. I don't see a way where Kevin doesn't win. Ironically though, Kevin in the Alien Force era is a Kevin that I actually do not trust to take on anyone who isn't absolute fodder. He's a lot less ruthless, he's a lot less bloodthirsty, he seems like he's a lot less controlled in his fights. Even though he's quote unquote having more powers, he's a lot weaker. He has no chance against Carnitrix Ben. Unless he's going to go for the absorption, then maybe, but otherwise, I don't see him having a chance. However, Omniverse's version of Kevin 11 actually has a lot of surprises to him. I would have classed him in the same level as Kevin from Alien Force. However, a big difference with him is that he can actually absorb, go into the amalgam transformation, and return back to human form without issue. He has full mastery over that power now, so it would not be an issue. And I guess we can also use the alternate reality version of Kevin 11,000. I definitely don't think he would have an issue taking on Carnitrix Ben either. So now that we've talked about the big three, let's talk about some more notable characters that are in the show that I think would probably be able to put up a decent fight. The Galactic Enforcers, for example, are probably the epitome of wasted potential because they have a literal Superman copy. He has laser vision, super strength, flight. I mean, come on, he was Omni-Manning before Omni-Man. He gets defeated by world-conquering Vilgax, but I do think that this super team should be able to take on the Carnitrix. The skills that I have seen them show, and especially with the fact that they are challenged and struggling against people like Volcanus. I mean, 6-6 has literally been soloed by me. Yes, roll the clip, it's actually true. But I definitely think they would be able to put up a fight against a version of the Carnitrix that doesn't have an Alien X accessed. Once Alien X comes into play, yeah, they have no chance. Another huge combatant though that is probably a good contender to fight Carnitrix Ben, of course without Alien X, is Azimuth's father. After he puts on that upgrade combat suit, I mean, he's throwing down with a Tetraman, he's throwing down with Ben with ease, and he's clobbering him. So I definitely do think he would be able to take a fight to him. Probably even with the Alien X transformation on, if we're going to be honest, because he seems like he has a lot of combat experience. Another person that I do see that would be able to take down the Carnitrix Ben is Sir George himself, the Knight Forever, the guy who predates the Omnitrix. He actually does have decent combat skill, he has years of experience, and he is still the most, well, the second most proficient wielder of Ascalon behind Ben. I think if he was to come into his potential, he would be able to floor Carnitrix Ben low difficulty. Hell on Wheels comes to mind, but I think the best way to do this one is to have it be a team-centric battle for them. The Plumbers kids, or I guess we would call them the Rooters technically because of this stupid retcon, but the Plumbers kids versus the Carnitrix. Would they be able to take him on? So I think they would be able to put up a decent enough of a fight to be able to hold their own against the Carnitrix Ben. Without Alien X, it would probably be relatively even in my opinion. Maybe they'd win out on like a small margin, but once Alien X comes to play, it's definitely GG well played. Ken Tennyson on the other hand, we get two versions of Ken in the series who are actually decent combatants in order to, you know, take on the Carnitrix. We get the version of Ken Tennyson who is son of Ben10,000, wielder of the Omnitrix, and we get another version, Omniverse Ken Tennyson, who is son of Ben10,000 and wielder of a sort of time suit, who we also know as Spanner. He's actually voiced by the same guy who voices Robin in Teen Titans. Would he actually be able to defeat the Carnitrix? I believe that both versions of this Ken Tennyson mop the floor. Mop the floor. You guys heard me. Mops the floor with the Carnitrix. Simply because Ken Tennyson has access to Master Control. He can unlock any alien at this point that he would want. Most likely as Alien X in this Omnitrix. It's GG well played, and I think Spanner is hugely underrated and is just probably one of the greatest potential men of the Ben 10 series because he has time powers. He can just redo the fight until he wins, or just carry whoever is relevant, because even in the fight with Maltruant, his dad was losing, his aunt was losing, his mom was losing, he just goes for another Ben. He could just do that. Max Tennyson. We have quite a few versions of Max Tennyson to actually consider. There are a lot of versions of Max Tennyson. But let's talk about the main ones, which are going to be Prime Max Tennyson, Gwen 10 Max Tennyson, who has an Omnitrix, and probably we could throw in Maximilian from the reboot. I definitely don't think Prime Max Tennyson or Maximilian stand a chance against the Carnitrix, but Gwen Tennyson, Max Tennyson, I think because of the level of battle experience and resourcefulness, he should be able to actually hold his own, and he'd probably be one of the few people to unlock Master Control a lot faster than any version of Ben Tennyson or even Gwen. I think Verdona mops the floor with the Carnitrix, especially with the fact that her reality manipulation powers are pretty much on the level of a freaking Celestial Sapien, being able to undo broken walls, complete reality manipulation or time manipulation abilities that we have seen her use in the episode What Are Little Girls Made Of. She's a force to be reckoned with, and even in that battle she was literally playing it easy. Final character that I do think that overwhelms the Carnitrix is Xylene. Potential was so wasted, but there are two major factors that I think that would be able to actually have her put up an incredibly good fight against the Carnitrix, and that is her telekinetic abilities and her mastery of the Omnitrix. She potentially has some of the easiest ways to then time him out. That would probably be GG well played, especially with the way how she actually deals with Heat Blast and Prime Ben when he is been pretty well practiced. I think she definitely has a high chance of being able to beat down Carnitrix Ben. But if you've made it to the end of this video, thanks so much. Feel free to subscribe, and if there's any characters that I missed, comment them down below. To learn even more about Ben 10 or the fan Omnitrixes, click here.